This is not motivation, it is a warning. What you are about to hear will either make you far smarter than the people around you or far more dangerous than you realize, because the same knowledge that sharpens perception can also harden the soul if it enters your mind before discipline enters your character. In Part 1, we go through the secrets and the exact exercises that install them. In Part 2, we expose what these secrets cost when they go too far, because nobody tells you this part. And in Part 3, we show you how to carry this level of intelligence without it slowly dismantling the last thing that makes you worth knowing. Let's begin. Every person who has ever tried to improve themselves has been taught one direction forward: set a goal, build a plan, take action, move toward the thing you want, and repeat until it happens. And that approach is not wrong, it is just dangerously incomplete, because it only uses half of your mind. What nobody teaches you is that the most precise thinkers in history did not just think forward, they thought backward, systematically and deliberately, using a mental process called inversion that has been used by the Stoics, by Charlie Munger, by the engineers behind the most complex and reliable systems ever built, and by every person who has ever achieved something that lasted. Inversion works like this. Instead of asking, "How do I succeed?" you ask, "How do I guarantee failure?" And then you eliminate every answer you find. Instead of asking, "What should I build?" you ask, "What would destroy everything I am trying to build?" And then you make sure you never do those things. This sounds almost too simple, but the implications are completely devastating, because most people spend their entire lives chasing success while unconsciously doing the exact things that guarantee they will never have it. They eat poorly while wanting better health. They spend impulsively while wanting financial freedom. They seek validation publicly while wanting inner confidence. And they never see the contradiction, because they are always looking forward, never backward, never at the things they are actively doing that are working against everything they claim to want. The elite mind does not optimize for gain. First, it eliminates the causes of failure first, and that single reversal in thinking is the gap between almost winning your entire life and actually winning. The practice. Sit down tonight and write what I call a failure document. Not a goal list, not a vision board, a failure document. Write down every single behavior, pattern, decision, and habit that, if you continue doing it, would guarantee you never reach what you want in life. Be specific, be honest, be brutal. Then read that list every single morning before you begin your day, not as self-punishment, but as a map of exactly where the landmines are buried. The person who knows where the landmines are will always outperform the person who is only focused on the destination. Here is a secret that will change every area of your life, and it is one of the most consistently overlooked pieces of knowledge in the entire self-improvement space. There are two types of learners in the world, and the gap between them is not small. It is the difference between spending a decade building one skill and spending a decade building 10 skills at a level most people never reach in a lifetime. The first type learns things. The second type learns how to learn things. And that second type is operating with an entirely different set of cognitive tools. This is called meta-learning, and it is the practice of studying the architecture of a subject before you enter it. Most people approach learning by immediately consuming content. They buy the books, they watch the tutorials, they sign up for the courses, and they dive in without ever stepping back and asking the 3 questions that would cut their learning time in half. Those 3 questions are: what are the minimum essential components of this skill? Which 20% of this knowledge produces 80% of the real-world results? And what is the fastest path from zero to functional? The elite learner never starts learning anything without first spending dedicated time learning how the best people in the world learned it, not what they know, but how they got there. Because the process that produced the expert is more valuable than any single piece of the expert's knowledge. And nobody teaches this, because teaching it means admitting that most of what you will ever be sold in courses and programs could be compressed dramatically if you simply knew how to approach learning itself first. The practice. The next time you want to build any skill before you consume a single piece of content, spend 2 focused hours doing only this. Find 3 people who are at the absolute highest level of that skill and study how they learned it. Specifically, look for the methods they shared, the starting points they all had in common, and the things they all say were wastes of time. Map the overlaps between all 3, and that overlap is your meta-learning blueprint. It will cut your learning curve in half before you have even opened a single book. This secret is so old that most people have forgotten it exists, and so powerful that the man who used it most consistently was eventually sentenced to death for making people too uncomfortable with their own thinking. Socrates did not teach by telling people things. He taught by asking questions, and specifically by asking questions that revealed how little people actually knew about the things they were most certain about. He called it the elenchus, the art of intellectual cross-examination, and it is the most effective cognitive tool ever developed for dismantling the invisible ceiling that is keeping you operating below your actual capacity. What nobody tells you is that most of your current limitations are not made of real inability. They are made of unexamined assumptions, beliefs you carry because someone told you once, and you never once questioned them, things you accept as permanently true, because everyone in your environment also accepts them as permanently true things you have never sat down and actually tried to break. And when you start breaking them systematically using the right questions, what you find underneath is almost always one of 2 things. Either a ceiling dramatically higher than you ever knew you had, or the single core belief that was the origin point of every other limitation in your life. And when you find that belief and examine it honestly, your entire internal architecture shifts. The practice. Pick the one belief you hold most strongly about what you are capable of or what is possible for your life. And then sit with these 4 questions one by one without rushing. How do I actually know this is true? What specific evidence would genuinely change my mind on this? Who benefits if I keep believing this? And what would I do differently tomorrow? If I discovered this belief was completely wrong, spend at least 5 minutes on each question without moving to the next. The discomfort you feel doing this exercise is not a signal that you should stop it. It is the signal that you have found something real, and finding it is the first step to dismantling it. No modern technique can replicate. Every person in the self-improvement space tells you to visualize success, to see your goals clearly, to hold the image of the life you want. And that advice is not wrong, but it is dangerously incomplete. And the half they never teach you is the half that actually builds the psychological foundation to handle everything the journey to that success requires. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. And it is the deliberate, systematic practice of imagining the worst possible outcomes. Not to attract fear, not to invite negativity, but to surgically remove the power that fear of loss currently holds over every decision you make. Here is the mechanism your brain generates anxiety, not primarily about things that are actually dangerous, but about outcomes it has never processed and cannot predict. When you force yourself to sit inside the worst-case scenario, deliberately and completely, your brain stops classifying it as an unthinkable catastrophe and starts classifying it as a survivable possibility. And survivable possibilities do not generate paralysis. The people who skip this practice are hostages to outcomes they cannot control, because their mind has never survived those outcomes. Even in imagination, they make smaller decisions than they are capable of. They take less risk than their situation warrants, and they live inside a cage whose bars are made entirely of fears they have never once examined directly. The people who practice this regularly walk into uncertainty with a stability that looks from the outside like extraordinary courage, but is from the inside simply familiarity with outcomes they have already survived in their own minds. The practice. Every Sunday night, spend 10 uninterrupted minutes doing the following. Take the thing you are most afraid of losing right now, your income, your relationship, your reputation, your health, or your sense of identity, and fully imagine losing it in complete detail, not as a passing thought, but slowly and completely walk through what would actually happen. What would you do? How would you survive? what would remain after that loss. And then, when you open your eyes, look at what is currently in your life with full awareness. This practice does two things simultaneously. It makes you genuinely more grateful for what you currently have, and it removes the hostage power that fear of loss holds over every decision you make from this point forward. This is the secret that quietly invalidates most of what the self-improvement industry has built its entire business model on, and I am going to say it as plainly as possible. Willpower does not work, not because you are weak, not because you lack character, but because willpower is the wrong mechanism for the job. Willpower is a finite resource that depletes with every use, and any system of behavior change built on willpower is a system built on a foundation that will always eventually crack under sufficient pressure. What actually produces lasting, permanent change is identity, and the difference between these two mechanisms is not small, it is everything. When you use willpower to change your behavior, you are in a constant internal war between the behavior you want and the identity you currently hold. You want to be disciplined, but somewhere beneath the surface, you still see yourself as someone who struggles with discipline. And every single day is a battle between what you want to do and who you currently believe you are. And that battle is exhausting, and it is a battle you will keep losing until the identity shifts. When the identity shifts first, the behavior follows without the war. Not because you became stronger, but because you stopped fighting yourself. The behavior now comes from who you are, not from what you are forcing yourself to do, and that difference in the source of the behavior is what makes it sustainable. The elite understand this at an operational level. They do not try to act like the person they want to become. They decide they already are that person, and then they make decisions consistently from inside that identity until the external evidence catches up with the internal belief. And here is the thing. The evidence always catches up because behavior driven by identity is exponentially more consistent and more durable than behavior driven by willpower applied to a self-image that hasn't changed. The practice. Tonight, write 5 identity statements about the person you are in the process of becoming. Right now, write them in the present tense, starting with, I am someone who, and make them specific and personal. Not I am disciplined, but I am someone who does the work before I check how I feel about doing it. Not I am confident, but I am someone who acts before the fear passes. Then every morning read these statements once out loud. Not as a wish, not as an affirmation, but as a fact. You are reminding yourself of then make one single decision that day, that only that person would make just one, and track those decisions over 30 days. Because the accumulation of identity-consistent decisions is what eventually makes the identity feel completely true. Now here is where it turns. Because everything you just heard is real, and if you apply it consistently, your mind will begin operating at a level that most of the people around you simply will not understand and will not be able to explain. But there is a cost to this, and nobody tells you what it is. The first casualty of becoming this cognitively sharp is not weakness. It is memory. The stronger your mind becomes, the more natural it feels to operate at this level, and the easier it becomes to forget what it felt like before, to be confused, to be overwhelmed, to be genuinely lost inside a problem that felt impossible to see through. And that forgetting creates a very specific blindness in your empathy, in your leadership, and in every relationship that actually matters to you. You start looking at people who are struggling and feeling something uncomfortably close to impatience because you can see exactly what they need to do, and you genuinely cannot understand why they are simply not doing it. But you have forgotten what crawling felt like. You have forgotten the specific texture of being stuck when you could not see the way out. And if you stay in that forgetting long enough, you do not become more powerful. You become more isolated, and the isolation feels like clarity. And that feeling like clarity is the most dangerous illusion a sharpened mind can live inside, because it removes the feedback loop that keeps every powerful person honest. The second cost is one that almost no one admits to the more capable and the more unreadable you become. The more the people around you will stop offering you honest feedback and start offering you what they believe you want, To hear a mind this powerful operating on consistently false information about itself is not a strategic advantage. It is a disaster that has simply not happened yet. The practice for carrying this safely. Once a week, ask one person you genuinely trust this single question. What is something you have noticed about me recently that you have not said out loud? Then go completely silent. Do not defend. Do not explain. Do not reframe or analyze what they say in real time. Simply receive it. This is the practice that keeps you connected to honest feedback when your level of capability would otherwise insulate you completely from ever receiving it. And you must write your personal code. Not a motivation quote, not a philosophical framework, but 3 specific, ruthless personal rules that govern exactly how you use what you now know. I do not use what I understand about people to diminish them. I use it to understand them more completely. I do not use my cognitive clarity to win. I use it to find what is actually true. I do not let my ability to see further become a reason to stop being patient with people who are still finding their way. This code is not weakness. It is the thing that keeps the weapon pointed in the right direction. Because a mind operating at this level with no code is not an asset to the world around it. It is simply a very sophisticated and very directed source of damage. This is DarkWhisper. We do not teach what everyone else is teaching. We do not give you the sanitized version. We go to the places most channels are not willing to go because the real secrets are not the ones that make you feel inspired. For 20 minutes, they are the ones that make you see yourself and your life with a clarity that you cannot unfeel once it arrives. Real intelligence is not just about becoming more powerful. It is about becoming powerful enough to be trusted with the power you are building. Subscribe, because the next video goes even deeper into the psychology of how the sharpest minds in the world actually operate. Everything I just taught you, the inversion principle, the meta-learning blueprint, the identity shift, the Socratic method for breaking your own ceiling. Each one of those is a single concept, a fragment. The full system has 10 videos covering influence, perception, power, dark psychology, cognitive biases, negotiation, charisma, and the language architecture that moves people in business, relationships, and daily life. It's called the Elite Mind Blueprint. First course DarkWhisper ever released. 100 sales in the first day, 4.9 stars, plus a full companion workbook called the Operator's Notebook. If what you just heard changed how you think, the course will change how you operate. Link in the description. Go operate.